Hello and welcome to episode 288 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast and all of the internet. My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is Patrick Nisley.
My name is David Howe, and boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we got a very special guest joining for the very first time on the show. Let's welcome the wonderful Josh Levin, ladies and gentlemen.
That's me. Hello.
How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Very good, very good.
Good.
Josh is here to talk with us about Star Fox. We're going to be talking about where the series is, where we want the series to go. Is this series dead? ? I don't know. But before we get into all that, of course, we're going to talk about the news. Apple's Vision Pro supposedly halts production. There's Awesome Games Done Quick is happening right now. And of course, there are a myriad of alleged Switch 2 leaks continually coming out day by day. There's probably one by the time this episode releases in between us recording it. So, but before we get into all that, this is our first episode back since the holidays. How's everyone doing? How was your holiday? How was your break?
Yeah, I had a pretty good time. It was an intense break, as it seemingly always is at this point. I don't know why I keep subjecting myself to that. But, I'm glad to be home. And I did get to go see some of my extended family on my dad's side in England, which was a really awesome time. I didn't spend a ton of time there, but I did spend New Year's in London, and I got to hang out with a bunch of my cousins and their kids and a couple of my aunties and stuff like that. So that was really nice to do that and see a lot of them. And then, other than that, I've been kind of chilling. I'm pretty happy today. Donkey Kong Country 3 soundtrack dropped on Nintendo Music, so I'm a happy boy. What about you guys?
I had a rather chill break. So I was just telling Josh a minute ago, my kid goes back to school tomorrow. So tomorrow is sort of the end of this sort of winter break for me. The nursery that I work at has been closed. I didn't force myself to do tons of work on Monochrome Heights over this break. I did some, but I've mostly just relaxed and played a lot of video games, actually, which was really great because, I don't know. It's not that I haven't regularly played stuff, but I often just play with my kid or socially. And I played a lot of stuff just by myself recently, and that's been really nice. And then
Nice.
I had a couple family D&D sessions. We kept our Christmas familial obligations because both of me and my spouse's family lives in Austin. So it can be a lot sometimes to go to all the things. But this year we didn't. We kind of limited it. So that was really nice too. So anyway, I could go on, but it's been a rather good break for me. But I am really ready to go back to having a routine. And so I'm very thankful and getting back to work on various things. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, I feel you there. Definitely getting some sort of routine down in order because that liminal space between Christmas is done, but New Year's isn't here yet is just like that 5 days or whatever stretch of time is just such a weird spot, man. But yeah, the break for me was as intense as well. We are planning a move sometime this year. So out of Texas. So we felt that we should try to make all of the things this year, which is 4. So we did that in the span of Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas. And it was just rapid fire. And after all that, Valerie and I decided, instead of going on a vacation this year, we usually kind of try to go somewhere during that time space. We would just do awesome things that we had never done before, or we wanted to do one last time. So we did, we went to Quantos Tacos, Blue Owl, Don's Depot with Don playing, had dinner at the Driscoll, dressed up and went to the Elephant Room after, went to Book People, got this special coffee that Valerie likes. It's the Aztec Mocha. Chew Sando, tried that out for the first time. Went to the Sign Bar out far east.
You have patronized every single Austin business.
We were trying. We were boom, boom, boom.
You've listed them all.
Well, all the ones that are left. And that was what I was reminded of at Sign Bar, where I was like, oh shit, here's a sign to a bunch of places I like that closed. And this isn't a bar. This is a graveyard.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool to see all that. But watched fireworks from Zilker Park. That was nice. We didn't go down to like see Third Eye Blind or anything like that, but we did go near Zilker Park and stood in an area where we could see the fireworks from far away and not deal with the crowd. But we did the polar plunge too. We jumped in the Barton Springs.
Wow.
Man, sorry. Yes, we. So it's been a very busy time period. And
That's
then
crazy.
even more importantly, though, I went over to David's last night and watched the Golden Globes.
That's true. We did do that last
Wow.
night, didn't we? That was a pretty good time.
I
Yeah.
had fun. I don't.
We had
give
some
a-
nice brandy
That's true.
during the presentation. That was a really nice time.
I didn't have the heart to tell you, David, but I was like, I don't really care about the Golden Globes, but I care about you. And I like hanging out with you. And I would rather hang out with you and do this, like, than not hang out with you at all. So I really
Wow.
was like, but I was actually surprised I was like, now I really want to see The Brutalist.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm seeing it Sunday if you want to come join.
I'm jealous. What time? Let's talk about this later. Sorry. I'm sorry. I had to pull up a list for this because I usually don't remember anything. So sorry I went on a little long this time. Josh, how about you? How's
Yeah.
your break?
Break was pretty good. It was getting a lot of school stuff together for upcoming semester that's starting later this month. So got all of that off. New Year's I spent at Summers with Weast. So we were there. We did PowerPoint party. I did a PowerPoint on a mythical treasure from thousands of years ago and had found footage of opening this treasure that was in reality a small Frogger game. So that was my presentation.
Very
It was
cool.
a fun party, very fun, very jolly, all that. Other than that, not much, just chilling out, doing my thing.
Well, Happy New Year. to
Yeah, thank you.
everybody.
And to
Happy New
you.
Year.
And to you.
We've done it.
And to everyone out there, Happy New Year as well. So yeah, our last couple episodes included a special episode, so we're gonna do some shout outs relating to both of them. We had our Golden Headz annual award where we give out, basically our favorite games in a bunch of categories and give out the Golden Headz awards. And we had our 2025 sort of Nintendo what they're going to do episode, like we always do as well. And regarding that, both Cena and Hatstack Mike commented about the same thing, which I don't know that we talked a lot about, or if at all, mentioned on that episode. So good call, y'all. But they both said I think Cena said one thing people are tending to forget about is Sakurai has been working on a game for over 2 years. And Hatstack Mike also said that he's curious about what Sakurai's next game is, whether it could just be Super Smash Bros. Or Kid Icarus or something completely different. What do y'all think about that before we move on?
Yeah, I don't know what he's working on. I mean, I would love for it to not be Smash,
Yes.
because I'd like to see what else he could do. I was watching some Kirby's Air Ride on AGDQ, and I was like, man, Sakurai, when like off the leash, really does some fucking crazy stuff, So, I mean, I'd love to see obviously Kid Icarus Uprising port, but I don't think he necessarily needs to be on that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd love to be surprised by whatever Sakurai's been working on.
And then also, I think it was Hans over on our Discord who started this trend of taking all the categories that we gave awards to individually in our Golden Headz Award and given their picks for the year. And that was really nice. Actually, a bunch of people got on board with that. So that was really fun. So if it's not too late, I'm still interested to hear what everybody's favorite games from last year were. So come join the Discord and share your picks there. And then, we appreciate hearing from our listeners and viewers. And if you want to be shouted out, then, definitely leave us a comment on the YouTube or send us a note. We also appreciate it when folks review the podcast over on Apple or post a comment on Reddit and share the podcast. We've got a Patreon where you can financially support the podcast. And we've got a video version if you're not already watching it. And when you head over to YouTube to check it out, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And then we're going to move on to the news and rumors for the week. We're going to start off with Awesome Games Done Quick, AGDQ, the speedrunning event that happens twice a year. Awesome Games Done Quick, which is in January, is happening right now. Actually, just kicked off day before we're recording this, and it's going to be going through the 12th of January. I haven't really personally had a chance to see too much, but what about y'all? Has anybody checked this out?
Yeah, I haven't watched a ton so far. It's only been going for like a day when we're recording this, a day or two so far. But there's been some pretty cool stuff already at Kirby's Air Ride run that I was talking about earlier. That was done by one guy with 4 GameCube controllers, doing it all by himself with solo commentary too. He didn't have anybody on the couch behind him. So like that was a really impressive run. That's worth checking out. There was a UFO 50 showcase today, which was really exciting to see. It was like 4 of the games in UFO 50 being speed ran. I don't know what the past tense of that is. But yeah, there's been a lot of other really great stuff as well. And there's a lot that I'm looking forward to. I know later in the week, somebody's going to be playing New Super Mario Brothers U, I believe, while playing piano. So there's a lot of like weird kind of niche kind of weirdo runs along with just your kind of normal any percent runs. But I love any game. I love awesome games done quick and summer games done quick whenever they do them. So I'm excited to watch a lot more of this throughout the week.
I watched the Portal 2 run by I think M Sushi. He's a pretty avid part of that community. They did very good. It was pretty a good showcase. I thought that was pretty good. UFO 50, as David said, that was a really great one. I think Warp Tank was a pretty long, but really entertaining. A lot of movement and tech to watch.
Yeah.
But that's the only 2 I really caught wind of. So
yeah, it puts UFO 50 into perspective because there are some games in UFO 50 that you can beat casually in like 5 minutes if you know what you're doing. Yeah. But like the speed run for Warp Tank was like 28. You know? That's crazy. So it was like, yeah, there's such a gamut, a wide variety of game lengths in that game. So it was really interesting to see that showcase.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, perhaps next week, if there's anything crazy, we'll talk about it. But we'll move along for now to probably a big chunk of our news section this week, which is the Switch 2 rumors and leaks and related news that just keeps on coming, which makes it just big picture pretty clear to me that they must be manufacturing these right now, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like I don't think there's, which means nothing in terms of when they want to release it, but probably points to sooner than later, right? But just to kind of go over some of it, there has been a picture that leaked of the motherboard of the, internally inside this device that has caused a lot of discussion and speculation above my head. Just looking at the picture of it, like I couldn't tell you what that means, but I don't know if anybody here has dug into this particular part of it and has any knowledge, or if we want to move on to some of the other things that are.
I mean, it is like a little above my pay grade, but it's everything again. Just with all of the Switch 2 stuff that has been leaking, it corroborates everything that has come out up to this point, right? And it's got the USB-C on the top and the bottom. It's got spaces for these updated SoCs and everything like that. So it's definitely just more fuel for the fire. Even if I'm not the biggest tech expert, I'm trusting the people that are to tell me that this is the real deal.
Another piece of news on the Switch 2 has been a patent that Nintendo filed actually back summer of 2023, but is kind of being published recently, and that is highlighting the ability for using AI upscaling, basically, which has been something that is also discussed and rumored and leaked and all of that. So it's another, I don't know if it's confirming anything, but all these things are all lining up, right? Like you said a minute ago, David. Then another leak has been of the Joy-Con. We've already had some of these, but this is like just new photos that show what looks to be like a real one, right? More so than what we've seen before.
Yeah, this photo that's come out looks like a retail unit.
Yes.
It's not like a mold that's black with the holes where the stick should be. Like this looks like the one you'll get in the box, basically. Yeah, which is really exciting to see.
Yeah, my biggest question, the first thing I thought when I saw this was like, yeah, but is the stick drift fixed? Like, 'cause you can't tell based on the photo because it's just an actual photo of the thing. But I'm like, this is the first time I saw one. I was like, oh, this is the actual what it's gonna look like. This is legit. There's no way this is fake at this point,
Yeah. I find this pretty exciting, and there's actually a lot to talk about with this picture. If you're watching the video version, you can see pictures of this. There's kind of it's a side-on picture and then a picture from the back. It's kind of interesting because the Joy-Con itself is black, but then kind of the rail mechanic, which is not really a rail anymore, it's now like a magnetic suction mechanic. That is what has the color in it. And allegedly the other one is orange. And I think a lot of what Next Handheld, the guy who said that he had a Switch 2 and was going to release stuff on Christmas, he talked about how like kind of under the stick there's a little splash of color. So it seems like the colors are a little more subdued this time, so that's definitely interesting. But I think one of the biggest things of note is that kind of square right above the connection point where the controller actually connects to the system itself. It appears to be that there is one or two little camera lenses inside there. I don't know if you guys have taken a close look at this, but that's gotten a lot of people speculating that it is very similar to the kind of infrared cameras that are on the bottom of a mouse, right? So a lot of people right now are speculating that the Joy-Cons, when put on their side, will kind of act as a mouse, which at first I was thinking that's a little too out there even for Nintendo. But then I kind of thought about it more, and the more I think about it, the more I kind of believe this might be true. If you take your right Joy-Con right now, especially if you're right-handed, and you kind of take it off and put it on its side with the rail facing down, like on the table in front of you, put your finger, your index finger on the R button and your middle finger on the ZR button, you can definitely see how that would feel kind of like a click of a mouse, right? And then your thumb can kind of rest on the buttons and stuff like that. And if you look at the picture here as well, there are kind of rubber pad looking things on the top and bottom, which would kind of act as like glide pads. So I think a lot of people are really kind of going forward with this. And I think that would actually make a lot of sense, especially since, the Joy-Cons already have IR cameras on them. So really all it's doing, if they're getting rid of that bottom IR camera functionality, is just moving where the IR camera is within the actual unit itself. So I think that's a pretty exciting thing. I don't know what you guys think about a potential, mouse integration with the Switch 2.
That'd be sick. I mean, that makes sense. I feel like it would also help with some of the awkwardness of some games, especially from the Wii era, where pointing at the screen might not be a possibility on the Switch itself. So like being able to kind of like circumvent that and maybe port more games from there. I'm not really sure what the potential is for that either. And if no one wanted to say more about that, I was more noticing too, just like the amount of buttons or apparent buttons that are on this thing. Because in addition to, the syncing button and then the SR button, which are bigger on this one, which is really nice, because I think that's my biggest complaint about playing with a Joy-Con single is those buttons are not big enough, because most of the time I'm playing honestly Mario Kart. So that'll just be nice for like drifting and stuff. But there's like it looks like I'm not sure if it's a button or not, but it's like on the right, there's like a button to the right of the SR. And then on the left, there's also another button that looks like the syncing button, but a little bit bigger and a little bit different. And, like to me, it's not clear if those are buttons, but if those are buttons, like what would those be used for?
So those are what Next Handheld referred to as like the rubber membranes. So like those would be like the glide pads, but apparently you can also click them. Right. So I think that essentially it would just mean that minus a D-pad, a sideways Joy-Con would have all the buttons of a regular controller and all the same functionality. Right. So that's kind of interesting. And I mean, even if you wanted to, you could theoretically use like a swipe on that on that IR camera, to kind of act as a D-pad button or whatever. Right. If you're going up, down, left, or right, if that is the case. But yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I think just the size being slightly bigger, I'm really hoping that the kind of sideways single Joy-Con experience of the Switch 2 is a lot more comfortable than it was on the first one, because your hands really cramp up playing with the single Joy-Con on the Switch.
Yeah, I try to never have that be the case. Like I never want to play with that, but I suggest, I mean, if they really are going for a big, beefier, more powerful console that can have bigger third-party games run on it, having a mouse would, allow a lot of, I don't know, RTSs and all sorts of games that aren't really feasible without, or, are clunky and hard and might make it easier for third-party developers to arguably, right? If there's so.
Totally. I mean, there's been a couple consoles that have done this, like handhelds that have done this. The ROG Ally, the right Joy-Con, I guess you could call it, they detach from the ROG Ally, and you could put a little attachment on the bottom and kind of slide it around like it's a mouse as well. I don't think anybody really uses that. I can, in fact, see us right now being like, wow, this is a really cool idea, and then like almost no games actually supporting it, But I mean, it makes more sense than where they have the IR camera right now, which never gets used for anything. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's very interesting, and it's getting me really excited. And then as far as stick drift, a lot of the leaks have also talked about within the specs of the system, Jordan, have said that the sticks will be using Hall effect sensors. So there should theoretically be no more drift if that's the case. That would be fucking insane if they made all these upgrades to the Joy-Con and like didn't fix the stick drift problem. That would be totally bad shit.
I mean, I don't know that it's actually costing them that much money. They got a lot of bad press about it, and they do free repairs here in the States, at least. I don't know if they do everywhere else. And I've sent a few in, and I need to send that one. I was just doing what you were suggesting to see what that feels like. That's why it's sitting right here. But like, I would imagine even if they're not losing tons of money on it, it's been a bad enough experience. They really want to fix it. I hope, right?
Yeah. Josh, you have any thoughts on these leaks and these designs of the new Joy-Con?
Yeah, the big thing that I've been really wondering is like that back trigger placement is like, I don't know, you kind of it looks like you wrap your finger around to pull it. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is, but I don't know. I'm really curious on how that's going to feel,
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that button is maybe the release for the magnetic, because if it is magnetic, I mean, like you were talking about, there's like that button inside the button, Jordan, on the very top of the Joy-Con. And apologies for everybody who's listening to this right now, doesn't have a visual aid, but I don't know that inner thing is a button at all. I think that's maybe a little poke. I think it's like maybe a thing that will then separate the system from the side and kind of push out with the magnet, right? So I think if you have that bigger, chunkier button, it's maybe going to toggle that magnetic suction on and off. So that would be my guess there, but
that makes sense.
It does seem that they are not going with analog triggers this go round again, which is a shame, because I think that was one of the main things that I think I was personally missing from the Joy-Con this past go round.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Anything else on these or anything else that's been going on with the Switch 2 before we move on?
Not. I've kind of been avoiding it. Not gonna lie. I've been, I don't want to spoil myself too early. These leaks are very interesting, though. They're really intriguing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just time. Like, announce the system. Like, come on, man. Like, when you're gonna let this many leaks kind of like slip through, it's like just rip the Band-Aid off. Everyone kind of knows what to expect. Just put it out there so that we can all have like an official and not have to keep going to all these. They're not even like dark websites or anything like that. It's like Reddit posts.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Twitter.
dude,
Yeah.
Twitter. I'm just like, just come on, man. Like, just release the actual announcement video.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've had like an unprecedented amount of leaks. Like we were nowhere near this with the last system. We are in a different social media landscape than when the first Switch came out and everything like that. And everybody's been rabid. An entire fucking genre of like YouTuber has like been like a Switch YouTuber since then. We are no exception to that. So, people are obviously, there's going to be more leaks this time around, but yeah, it's crazy that Nintendo has said nothing about this so far and they're just kind of letting this happen.
Yeah, well, let's hope that's not too much longer so that we can stop talking about this as leaks and rumors and just as news. But we can move along to this is kind of a leak rumor heavy week here, actually. So over on Reset Era, the board over there, an individual who goes by the name of Kiwi Talks over there made a post basically talking about how people they talked to that used to work at Retro Studios, I guess, again, corroborating a lot of the rumors we've heard about what Retro was up to, that this sort of music-based RPG is what, again, gets referenced here, that it was kind of something that just didn't work out, and Nintendo eventually canceled it, and then had them work on remastering Metroid Prime Trilogy, is what this story is, according to this person. And that they finished the first one, and then they were sent back to Metroid Prime 4. This is sort of my understanding of a summary, at least, of this. I don't know if anybody else pulled out anything else, or if, any thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is also what I've kind of been able to piece together as well through my own understandings of what is going on at Retro. Not that I have like definitive proof from anybody I've talked to at the company. I do know people that have worked there, but from what I've been able to piece together is that, yes, this is correct, is that Retro is essentially working on a brand new IP after Tropical Freeze. That was this music or singing based RPG game, and that Nintendo was just not happy with it. Like, it was just a mess, and they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't like crack the game. It got restarted a bunch of times, and Nintendo was like, hey, we're not going to fund this anymore. It's like essentially like, you guys are kind of going in circles. What we want you guys to do now is, do an entire remaster of the Metroid Prime trilogy. We know that's what you're good at. You guys can do that and all that kind of stuff, right? And then basically Retro got through one game, essentially being Metroid Prime Remastered, when they were then tasked with, you're actually going to be doing Metroid Prime 4, right? And now, whether that was a soft test of Nintendo to see if Retro still had the sauce to make a new Metroid game, or if they just were really upset with whatever Bandai Namco was doing with Metroid Prime 4, it's not really known. But this kind of goes with what we were talking about in our predictions episode about, what we're going to see out of Metroid Prime 2 and 3. Whatever it is, it sounds like Retro has not worked on them. They were tasked with working on them, but they never got to that point yet, right? I think that's also why there were so many support studios on the Metroid Prime Remastered for the first game, where otherwise it probably would have all been in-house. We do know that Nintendo likes to have Retro do their own remasters and remakes in-house. They did the Tropical Freeze remake in-house, and I think they maybe even did the 3DS version of Donkey Kong Returns in-house as well. So it's nice to have a little bit of clarity here. I mean, this is still technically rumor, but I really trust Kiwi Talks. If you go on Kiwi Talks YouTube channel, he has lots of long form discussions with lots of ex-Retro employees. So he is one of the biggest experts on the company that is out there, at least within the kind of like gaming pundit space, right? So I definitely trust this when it comes to that, and makes me really wish we could see what that music-based RPG Retro was working on was actually like, because that does sound really, really unique.
It's really strange to me that they were working on like a music-based RPG where supposedly the main mechanic was singing, but there's like no microphone built into the Switch at all, or any of the controllers of the Switch. So like, how would that have even worked? And I wonder if that was maybe like originally supposed to be like a Wii U game.
I think probably, yeah. Or maybe even a 3DS game. Yeah.
That's wild. And then eventually those both got phased out as soon as the Switch was a huge mega hit. So it makes me wonder really though, like how long they worked on Metroid Prime Remastered that we don't know of, because the game is so polished that it's like, doesn't seem like it was a quick turnaround, or if it was, like, damn, that's impressive. But it seems like maybe they were working on that even maybe while Bandai Namco was trying to crack Prime 4. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was the case.
Wow. So it's probably had been ready for years when they finally were like, okay, just make Metroid Prime 4. we'll figure out 2 and 3 later on down the line. It does make me wonder, though, if we're ever even going to get 2 and 3, because I was already pretty skeptical, to be honest, as the Metroid diehard of the pod, where I really want those games, but I am not getting my hopes up. I will never get my hopes up for any Metroid franchise because it is oft unloved, not as much as the franchise we're about to talk about, but yeah, so it just kind of makes me wonder if like what's the actual feasibility of getting Metroid Prime 2 and 3 at this point?
It's a good question. It does make me wonder that too. But for now, we can move along to our next news item, which is just sort of a heads up that the Mario Kart Lego sets are now out. They have now released all these Lego sets, which tie into they're just kind of like a subsection of the Mario Lego, which is a bit of a bummer, if you ask me. I think we've talked about this, so I won't go in detail. But just while we're talking about Nintendo and Lego, I did get my wife a Animal Crossing Lego set for Christmas, and just those are in the more traditional minifigure style, and I think they just look better, and she loved it, and she's like, now I kind of want all of them. So that's
nice.
Yeah,
I got my dad a F-Zero. I got my dad an F1 car Lego
nice
set, and I don't think he's ever going to actually make it. And yes, I'm saying this because I know my dad sometimes listens to this podcast, and I'm trying to guilt him into actually using my present.
Building it. Yeah.
Get on it, Dad.
Oh man. Okay, well, we're going to move on to talking about another series that Nintendo has that hasn't had much love in a while, and that is Punch-Out. This has been making, again, this sort of rumor rounds here. Imran Khan, who's another sort of video game pundit, like we were talking about, also, I think, said this on Reset Era, that they talked to somebody who, presumably the way he phrased it was, let's say a studio close to Punch-Out, and basically got them to say that the backlash against the characters of the Wii Punch-Out game was so big that they think Nintendo will never want to make another one of these games. This is obviously just one person telling a story from one person that they talked to that worked on it, but
while they were drunk, also.
Yes.
The story does say.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, if I had known this info before we had done that episode.
Where did y'all put it on the tier list?
Pretty high.
Y'all are wild for that.
I don't know. I stand by our tier list. I don't think that. First of all, congratulations to Imran Khan for graduating recently from physical therapy. I know he recently had a stroke and is up and walking again. As somebody who's gone through that myself, I just want to say, not a stroke, but going through physical rehab and learning how to walk again. Totally understand what that's like. So congrats to Imran Khan. But Imran, I don't think this means anything. I think, like, first of all, if you're talking to a guy from Next Level Games and he drunkenly was like, yeah, our game was kind of racist. That's all this story is. I don't think that this means that they're not working on. Also, this was a while ago. This wasn't like a recent thing that happened. This was talking about the response to the Wii game a long time ago. I don't think that this precludes them from making another Punch-Out. I think what we said in our previous episode when we were ranking the likelihood of games to come back was they would just need to do a revamp. You know what I mean? I think, yeah, they're probably trying to do something with ARMS, but I don't know if people want a new ARMS. I think people want a new Punch-Out. I think that more people want Punch-Out than were upset with the cultural stereotypes from Punch-Out Wii, right? And I think that you could do kind of a new shakeup with the game and give it a new fresh coat of paint that would make it sell just as well. And if Nintendo was so embarrassed of Punch-Out, would they be throwing in little Easter eggs all throughout the Super Mario Brothers movie and stuff like that? I don't know. I don't put a lot of credence into this. A lot of people are saying RIP Punch-Out. I am not in that camp.
Josh, do you think Nintendo's too woke to make a new Punch-Out now?
Man, that's a heavy hitter. I think they could make a new one. As David said, it's a guy who talked to a man who's drunk at a bar. So it's a lot of he said, she said type stuff. If they did make it, I think it really handled good with a motion control type thing, circa like fitness boxing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I could see that, something like that. I don't know. I think a new Punch Out would really, it'd sit well with me, at least. It's something that I feel like few people have really gotten their hands on, especially the newer generation. So I'd really like to see that kind of come out of the closet and really shine, you know?
I agree.
So
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing that Josh just said, which is like, if they made a game that wouldn't have to be a traditional Punch Out game, even they could make like a fitness boxing type game, or just like another, take the game in a different direction slightly. And I don't know, you know, but I don't want them to do that. But I just like, I kind of agree that I don't think this means the franchise is dead, but maybe it does mean, you know, the game or characters might change if it does come back.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah. It does. Just remove pasta pizza from the game, you know, and put in, you know, like a real Italian guy.
All right. Well, we'll move along with it. This is just sort of another thing that isn't official, but is being reported on, that Apple has halted production of the Apple Vision Pro, the VR headset that cost over $3,000 that nobody really wanted. That was kind of marketed as a work thing and didn't seem to have any sort of killer app or anything. So no huge surprise here on this. And I feel like VR was kind of having a moment, and then you know that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, which I think is what this news also dovetails with for me.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think the VR is still quietly has its fans and has been very slowly accruing market share. I think that just means people would rather spend $300 on a Quest 3 instead of $3,500 on whatever this is, you know.
Yeah.
And the Quest has so much more support and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think this is anybody could have seen this coming.
This was such a weird move too. It's like, it was one of the worst launches for Apple, I feel like, in a long time. Like, usually when their products come out, they're like pretty fully featured, fully fleshed out. This was like, you had to have a battery in your pocket plugged into the Vision Pro. And I'm like, that is some Gen 1 stuff that I have not seen in a long time. That is awful. This is not what people want from VR. I think like the success of the Quest is like, this is what they want from VR. They want like a headset that's wireless with like wireless controllers. Like, so I was just like, first I was struck by that. Two, I'm like, for $3,500, more than the cost of probably one of their most high-end MacBook Pros that you could get, like, is insane. So it's only going to be for like fanboys, or they're trying to sell this to like as a work optimization thing. I'm like, no company's going to pay $3,500 per person to have a workstation on top of the laptop they probably are just going to need because you just need to have a computer. So it's like, I was just like so baffled, like, who is this really for? Except for like maybe extreme Apple fanboys, of which there are many, but I don't think there's enough to support an entire line of products.
It reminds me a bit of Google Glass from like maybe a decade ago, where it was like really sought out to be this high end, you know, the next era of technology. But as soon as you get your hands on it, you kind of realize how little it really does for you. You know, and especially with Apple Vision Pro being $3,500, you know, get any other VR headset, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's very understandable. They're stopping production there. So
Yeah, you could buy 10 Quests, right?
Yeah. Suppose you're right. Yeah, dude. Yeah. Hey, girl, you want to come over to my place? I have 10 Quests.
Oh boy. Well, anyway, we'll move along to our last news item here, which is that there was a massive leak of data and information related to Halo. This leak allegedly comes from a group of people, like a group of modders that were hired by 343 Industries, the company that works on Halo now. But apparently this data goes back even as far as 1998, back when Halo, data from Bungie, and it apparently contains, builds and unreleased Halo stuff and all kinds of stuff, dev tools and stuff. I haven't seen a whole lot of the details about it, just sort of the big picture. But this kind of stuff seems to be happening more and more, like just all this old data leaking out. I don't know if anybody here knows of anything specific that's come out of this. Yeah.
No, not really. This stuff never really bothers me too much. I mean, I think I'm a game preservationist. I believe in game preservation. So it's like, stuff like this is always kind of gets me a little excited. No one wants to see the work that was never meant to be seen by anybody like out in the public. I mean, certainly that is like theft and all that kind of stuff. But, it's not like they're, once you start like kind of leaking builds of games that haven't come out yet and holding stuff hostage, like that's when you've got a real problem. Doesn't seem to be what's going on here. So that's fine with me. I also just don't really care about Halo anymore. I mean, if this had been Bungie that had a big leak, I think that would have been a little bit more exciting if it was like from the original games, but it's like the company that nobody really likes that's making Halo now. So who cares?
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff goes back to Bungie days and stuff too. So yeah.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
It's also only 90 gigabytes, which in the scale and scheme of leaks that we've seen as of late is a little skimpy, a little small.
Yeah, that's like one Call of Duty game.
Yeah. Not even.
Yeah.
Come on, steal more data, guys.
Yeah.
Like, Baldur's Gate 3 is like 150 gigs on my computer. Like, come on.
There you go.
Oh boy. Well, that's gonna do it for this week's news and rumors roundup, y'all. We are gonna take a short break, and when we come back, we're gonna be talking all about Star Fox. All right, we are back, and this week we are talking about Star Fox. So, there's been a lot of chatter about Star Fox in our community, I think, because of the episode we did not too long ago on sort of, dormant or dead franchises that might make a comeback in the near or short-term future. We put Star Fox up at the top, which has spawned a lot of discussion, and I feel like I've just seen a lot of things randomly about Star Fox. It's that, when you start noticing things, you start noticing them more. Phenomenon.
The Baader-Meinhof phenomenon.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Very nice.
Like when you hear a song on the radio for the first time and then you start hearing it in every store.
Yeah.
Is noticing it more. Yeah.
And so I think we're just going to kind of talk about the Star Fox franchise as a whole, and some of the big games and kind of what we think the future of that franchise might be, and maybe our own personal connections to it and that sort of thing too. Because I think one of the, for me, interesting points that I think I felt when we were doing that rankings episode of dead or dormant franchises was that I think that Nintendo thinks Star Fox is like a pretty big B tier franchise. Maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, they haven't put out a game in a little while, but that's just a gut feeling more than there's evidence. And I also, in putting together the notes for this episode, and then somebody else should talk, I realized I haven't played hardly any Star Fox games. I just am like, I played Star Fox 64, like the shit out of that when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. And like, I have an immense amount of fondness for that. Like I thought I played the Super Nintendo game, but in preparing for this episode, I realized I never have. So maybe it's my fault Star Fox is dead.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment. No, I mean, I definitely did play the original Star Fox. My dad is a pilot, or was a pilot. He's retired. So I think whenever the original Star Fox came out, he was really excited to play that with me. And in fact, I blame both my dad and the original Star Fox for the Super Nintendo on why I have to have inverted Y controls on every game that I play now. Because, I was playing the thing and I was like, oh yeah, you press up to go up and down to go down. And my dad was like, no, that's not how it works. You press down to go up and up to go down. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. He was like, learn it. And then he basically forced me to learn it because that's what planes are like in real life, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, that original Star Fox was a revelation. You know, I remember playing that back in the day with the Super FX chip on the Super Nintendo. You know, the graphics that they could only achieve on the Super Nintendo by packing a specific chip inside the cartridge that then talked to the system. That's why that game was so expensive when it released, is because it had its own hardware inside the cartridge. But you know, that was an incredible game at the time. Yeah, and when Star Fox 64 came out, my love for the franchise continued, you know, and it was another kind of big push towards a new technology. You know, like if the original Star Fox was pushing forward, you know, the Super FX chip, Star Fox 64 kind of pushed forward the Rumble Pack and came packed in with that and was more expensive because of that, right? So Star Fox has kind of always been a cutting edge franchise for them. And I think part of the reason that newer entries in the system have failed to garner as much, you know, excitement, very least from Nintendo and from consumers, is because it hasn't been used in that way that it was originally used from the beginning. And I hope to see Nintendo do something interesting with the Star Fox franchise going forward.
Real briefly, I just want to interject before I want to hear Jordan and Josh, obviously, but like, yeah, that makes me think about Star Fox Zero, you know, the Wii U, what you're saying, but people didn't like that and didn't respond to that, like use of the tablet specifically, right?
And it came out at like the end of that generation instead of the like beginning. Well, I mean, the original Star Fox was towards the end of the Super Nintendo, but it was using like new tech, you know. I think by the time that Star Fox Zero came out, these like games that utilized the tablet in like a gimmicky way, people just didn't give a fuck. Also, just nobody owned that system, so I don't like going against it.
Jordan or Josh, what about y'all? What are y'all's, you know, big picture thoughts on?
I think with the new tech David was talking about, that's a lot to Argonaut games. I think that's who created the Super FX chip and all that. And I believe, I forget who at Nintendo, but they wanted to make the Pilot Wings actual plane rotate in 3D and such things like that. And with that came Star Fox, out of trying to develop all that stuff and getting vector graphics and all that. So I think they had a really big part in upping the ante with the SNES and kind of all the capabilities it unlocked, you know. It's very revolutionary for the time. Very good release.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more about Argonaut, I'm sorry to interrupt again, but you know, the original game that they had developed was actually, there's a great video on this, like kind of the history of Star Fox, is a game called X, which came out in Japan for the Game Boy. The story goes, you know, that these guys at Argonaut, they didn't have a Game Boy dev kit, so they basically reverse engineered a Game Boy and like the cartridges and figured out how to actually put a game out on the system and made this kind of 3D sort of tech demo that they then were able to pitch directly to Yamauchi at Nintendo and show off this tech, and they loved it, right? And that kind of like went through with the Game Boy. They eventually put that out in Japan, and then that kind of led them to where, you know, they then wanted to move forward with the franchise. There's also stories about Shigeru Miyamoto like walking through some of the gates at the Fushimi Inari Shrine in Kyoto, which has all those thousands of torii gates all in a row, which when you go through it, definitely gives you the vibe of going through like a 3D corridor style thing like you get in that original Star Fox. But it was crazy what they were able to pull off and where a lot of those inspirations came from. Jordan, what's some of your history with this franchise?
Man, I do love Star Fox. I feel like maybe in the Discord it maybe got twisted that I do not like Star Fox, but I love Star Fox. My first experience was of course Star Fox 64. I played that game countless times, and even before I figured out there was like alternate paths, I kind of just played the main obvious path over and over and over again. And then the first time my friend showed me you could go through the waterfall in the first level, my mind was blown, dude. And then I just like opened up that whole world. And I honestly kind of attribute my love of roguelikes to Star Fox because it's like a game I could beat in an hour. And I'm like, oh, I love a game I can beat in an hour. That's so much fun. So that's why I beat it so many times. That and Super Mario Land 2, Legend of the Six Golden Coins. But yeah, and so from there, you know, of course, like whenever Star Fox Adventures came out, I was like, oh, you're going to make a Zelda Star Fox? I'm in. And I played that game and I loved that game when it came out. I never actually played Star Fox Assault, which is very bizarre because I was like the idea of getting out of the ship and playing as Fox McCloud after having played Smash for like 6 or 7 years was like really appealing, but I just never got around to it. But I mean, even on DS, I was a huge DS head. I had Star Fox Command and I played 100% of the Star Fox Command. And I don't think I've talked to anyone else who has one, played Star Fox Command, or two, 100% it.
I have not 100% it, but I have played.
Man.
I did beat Star Fox Command. Yes, I love that game.
Dude.
Command had like 9 endings, right?
Yeah,
or something
like that.
Something crazy like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was that. What was cool about Star Fox Command was that it also brought in kind of an element of strategy as well. It was like kind of that overworld star map that you see in between levels. From the very first Star Fox, they kind of turned that into its own sort of element of the gameplay, right? Where instead of just like an overworld like you would see in Super Mario World or something like that, it now had more of like a function, and you could, get closer or further from enemies, and that would kind of decide what levels you go to next. Command was a really cool game, and I think that was the last Star Fox game that Dylan Cuthbert from Argonaut Games actually was the director on, or at the very least worked on.
Yeah, and once they put Star Fox 64 on 3DS, of course I played that, but I never had a Wii U, so I never played Star Fox Zero. I had played Star Fox 2 before they released it. Don't ask me how, because I don't want to incriminate myself. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a series I always really liked. Just like the theming, the characters are always really cool. Like, I've always loved Peppy and Slippy, like just as characters, like the old man who's just worried, and Slippy, the engineer who's not the best pilot, but you gotta love him, like I just like love the theming of the series, and it's just like really bizarre to me that it has not continued on as much as it should have, or as it could have in the future.
Well, there's several things you just said that I want to unpack. So I'm going to start with you talking about playing Star Fox 64 and the alternate paths, because I think, at least for my understanding of, the original Star Fox and 64, and I don't know how much this happened in later games, but that's like a big part of the, it's an interesting choice for difficulty and for secrets and for stuff like that, to like, you can go this way and it's the normal, easy way, or this way for a more challenging experience, or have you. And I think it's a really cool thing that exists in this franchise. It's not unique to it or anything, but one of the sort of defining features, right?
You know what it reminds me of? Outrun, or games like that. Obviously Star Fox is very arcadey in that you can beat it in one sitting, right? Like you could with a lot of arcade games. But yeah, it reminds me a lot of Outrun, with kind of the branching paths. Like you finish a little section and you decide if you want to go on the B or the C path. And kind of the corridor style gameplay kind of has always reminded me a little bit of Outrun as well.
Yeah. And then I think you're right. It's not something I had thought about before we started talking here today, but the characters, I think the character design, anything about just Star Fox 64 and how, all the characters have strong personalities and they're anthropomorphic animals and they have a strong visual. I mean, even going back to the Super Nintendo, the box art of that fox, was very striking.
Yeah, they're like puppets. Yeah, or they were like maquettes. The characters that they had on the box art were amazing.
I think it's like I saw that box art so much, I thought I had played the game. You know what I mean? Like, but I really only played the N64 one.
I would love Nintendo to make a fantastic Mr. Fox style Star Fox like movie or show or something like that with stop motion. I mean, like if you had like Wes Anderson do like a Star Fox thing, like that would be fucking wild, Yeah.
If College Humor can do it, Nintendo can do it too.
Well, just like in how iconic, like do a barrel roll and, Falco's, some of his lines and stuff, just like there weren't a lot of games before then on consoles where you would hear a lot of audio. I mean, it's like sort of that era was changing, right? But
even the Super Nintendo version had some voice clips in it.
Oh, really?
It'd be like "good luck" and stuff like that, like at the beginning. It was pretty fucking cool. Speaking of adaptations, have you guys seen A Fox in Space?
No.
Yeah, it's like a fan animated, like hand drawn Star Fox show It's made by one guy, and it was originally called Star Fox the Animated Series, and he was like, I can't call it this. So he changed it to A Fox in Space. But it's all the Star Fox gang, and it's got this like sardonic humor, and it's like kind of like weirdly adult, but like not in a way that's like gross or pervy or anything, just like kind of strange. But it's really worth watching. If you guys like Star Fox, like I really recommend checking out A Fox in Space. It's really cool.
I think they've always nailed that kind of I don't know, almost like a cheesy humor with voice lines and just characters in general. I think there's just so much untapped potential, you know. It feels I'd really want to see a lot more of the characters they could come up with, I suppose.
I think what I'm hearing you say, or at least what that spoke to me, is like, I see these 4 characters on these 4 ships, and I can envision a broader world with lots of other animal characters and different types of ships and different, colonies and stuff like. And I think they're I could see it would be cool to, to branch out more. But I think the franchise has kind of branched out, right? It's not all space shooter games like we were talking about. And y'all are wishy-washy about this, but I mean, you were like they could do more, but they've put out a game every 4 or 5 years until recently.
Yeah, but how many of those are the same story over and over?
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like it is like you're talking about how it's got this incredible world and there could be all these different characters and all this, but they literally tell the same story of it's like they reboot the story almost every single game. I think that yes, they do put out a lot of stuff, but I think that has got people kind of annoyed. You know what I mean? Not that everybody cares about story a ton in video games, but it's like when you're talking about a world that is so rich and fleshed out and has so much potential, it is a little frustrating just to see them keep going back to Andros invading the Lilat system. And then, and Fox's dad, James, he died and he has to take up the Star Fox mantle. It's just like, all right, yeah, we got it. I got it in the very first Super Nintendo game,
It's like when they just keep remaking the Spider-Man franchise. It's like, dude, it speaks though to, they don't view Star Fox as a universe or a series of characters to tap into. They view it as a vehicle to showcase new technology in a space age format. And that's why I was like, I don't know if Nintendo legitimately cares about Star Fox or if there is anyone at Nintendo who does, because I will say Metroid has people who care about the lore of Metroid to keep pushing Metroid further. From Fusion to Dread, that story jump is pretty big, and it took a long time to get there, but there is someone holding the torch at Nintendo for this franchise, and I just don't know if Star Fox has that person at Nintendo.
Yeah, it's I think it's Miyamoto's influence on Star Fox, right? Probably the story, or who knows, right? We don't know.
I think you're right on the money, because he doesn't give a fuck about story.
You're talking about Metroid. I think Sakamoto cares a lot about story, like he does the Famicom Detective Club games and the Metroid series, and those are the story heaviest Nintendo games. And Miyamoto is the opposite, right? Where he thinks it's gameplay first and wants to retell the same story in every Mario and every Star Fox and every whatever. Yes, y'all are right. I think the story could and should be expanded. I just meant that they've taken the series in different directions in terms of gameplay with adventures and stuff like that. And I know that was maybe a bad example because they maybe just slapped Star Fox skin on a game isn't that the story with that one, right?
Yeah. Well, Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dinosaur Planet was an N64 game that got turned into a Star Fox game because the main character was a fox. And then they were like, well, why would you make a new guy? Just put fucking Fox McCloud on him.
Yeah, I guess is more just that they've done that. And then it doesn't really count, I guess, because it was kind of a pack-in game with Zero, but that sort of tower defense one, Star Fox Guard, which I have never played and I know wasn't maybe the best game. Did anybody here play that one? Or...
No, I didn't play Star Fox Guard. It was a pack-in with Star Fox Zero. I maybe messed with it a little bit at my buddy's house, but it's not a Star Fox game. That was a tech demo that was just had the Coda Paint put on it.
Yeah. Nope. So I guess I was just that the fact that they've done a few things like that were outside is kind of what I meant. to me means that they might be willing to do stuff. But I think Jordan's point overall is maybe right, that they don't want to expand the story and all that. But I hope that changes. And I think, as we've discussed, maybe now is the chance for stuff like that as some of these older, people phase out more and Nintendo and stuff like that.
I think that the person that I would like to see bring his hand into this is Yoshiaki Koizumi. Like, I know Koizumi is like very much involved with Mario right now and probably will stay there because he's doing a really good job with that. But I know Koizumi like actually gives a shit about story. And he's the guy that brought Rosalina's whole backstory into Mario Galaxy and a lot of the stuff with Mario Odyssey, and that like Miyamoto like actively pushed back against, you know what I mean? But I think like Koizumi kind of feels like the heir apparent to the kind of Miyamoto spot within Nintendo. It's not like he's no spring chicken either, but he's been around a really long time. He's been around, doing stuff with these franchises for a while. I just feel like I'd love to see him like direct or produce a Star Fox game and see what he could do with it. Because I think that could be really interesting, because I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel completely with Star Fox. Like, I think that they would do something kind of unique, but I think just giving a shit about the franchise. I saw somebody on Blue Sky made a post that I actually shared in our chat here that says, I wish they had taken a Castlevania approach with the Star Fox series where they just allow the game to have multiple generations. And this person, whose name, by the way, is George Squares on Blue Sky, said maybe the Star Fox after Fox could have been a terrible pilot, but with a great mechanic like Slippy. Maybe one could be more of a strongman brawler with an attitude like Falco or something like that, right? And so I think like the idea of just, it doesn't always have to be the same team, but just like that universe, and like Star Fox is not Fox McCloud. Like Star Fox is the group, it's like the group of them together. Right. So yeah, you could make more adventures with those teams, or you could just do something like kind of different within that world. Right. But the possibilities are really endless, and it's kind of something similar that we've seen happen with Star Wars as well. It's like Star Wars is this amazing sandbox where you can do tons of stuff, but it's so rare that you really see them take advantage of that. Like, so often everything is like, oh, it's another Jedi
Tatooine,
with thing. Yeah, or Tatooine for the 50 millionth time, and they made new movies, but it was basically a reboot, and it's like, you can do cool stuff with it. We've seen it happen, right? But just like, you have to like take the risk in order to do it. So I don't know. I'd love to see just anything else within that world. I don't know. That would be my real wish for Star Fox.
I think that's a fair point. And I maybe we can go to transition to talking about the future of and maybe what we would want, because there's been some good discussion around that. I guess briefly, I did want to point out that, we have, had even on this podcast, right, people that are kind of making games to fill this void that is in the indie space, right? There's Whisker Squadron and Whisker Squadron Survivor that makes it kind of clear that people out there want this kind of thing.
The one thing I was thinking about when like thinking about this episode was, I don't think Nintendo really cared too much, or maybe even Sakamoto cared too much to try to take back the mantle of Metroid until indies started making a bunch of Metroidvanias. And they're like, oh, there's legitimately a market for this. People want this type of game again. Like, let's figure out the next step. And I feel like Star Fox is about to have that moment. Because
I hope so.
I Googled Star Fox like games, and like the list of indies, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize like there was this many games similar to Star Fox, like about to happen or about to come out. And I'm hoping that they have that moment. And I took a second to play a little bit of Whisker Squadron Survivor before, and I was like, this is pretty fun. This gameplay, it still rips. It still feels good to play. Like, I think we're about to have that moment, because there's not even a lot of on rails airplane shooters anymore. Because I mean, even when Star Fox was out, there was Panzer Dragoon, and there was like other spin-offs that were kind of like Star Fox, but not really. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's going to really, I'm hoping it takes just like the indie space to make a couple games to let Nintendo know, oh no, this is a viable game that would sell units.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, X Zodiac is a really good one. If you guys haven't played that one, I really enjoy X Zodiac. It's done visually in the style of Star Fox for the Super Nintendo with the really crunchy pixels and stuff like that, but plays at a solid 60 frames per second and has a lot more going on. It's very much technically more impressive than what you could see there. But yeah, you're totally right. I think, we're in an era now where Nintendo is getting a lot more generous with their IPs. Even Metroid, like you're talking about, Metroid Dread was not made by a first party Nintendo studio. That was contracted out. Right. So, I think that it's very much possible. I think this kind of does beg a question, though, that I'd like to get y'all's opinion on. And this is something that I think that Cool Uncle Vince brought up in the Discord when a lot of people were having this conversation. And I think that it's like, what kind of shape would a new Star Fox take? Because we've talked a little bit about that, that hour-long game that you can beat in one sitting. Is that going to fly in 2025 and onward, for a new Star Fox game? Like, I feel like Star Fox Assault was a bigger game, Adventures was a bigger game to a degree. I mean, Command was a bigger, longer kind of experience with more to it. What kind of shape would you want to see a new Star Fox take? If not, I mean, I think the obvious choice would be like a roguelike, but then we kind of see that with Whisker Squadron Survivor already. It's essentially what that game is. Like, what do you guys envision?
I think a lot for me would be a lot more world building. Like, I adore Star Fox 64. That goes unsaid, but when you go to the planet, you only see like such a small fraction of it that it really feels, I don't know, it feels very empty. And I'd really want to see like you have like 10 missions on Corneria, right? And you really get to know like there's people living here and it's being invaded by this huge intergalactic, superpower. I'd really like to see more missions like that, a lot more world building. It's just, I think that's the one thing that is really lacking for
maybe
me,
like a Corneria slice of life going to work simulator.
yeah, something like that.
Well, yeah,
General Pepper.
It was you, Josh, that pointed that out, right? Like that, these games hint at this broader war, and then you go in and you target one little base. And yeah, I think it could, if it was going to be a bigger game that takes time to breathe, it could, be a lot meatier in terms of the story and the amount of missions in one area, and make an area feel unique. And then you go to a new area and you have new ships, new equipment, whatever. I think they could take it in a lot of different directions. So it's hard to know what way they should do it, though. I mean, the thing that jumps out to me is multiplayer, whether that's co-op or versus. We've got these 4 pilots everybody loves. I'd love to play with my 3 friends on some campaign, what I mean? A co-op campaign where like, maybe there's AI, pilots if you don't have a friend to play the game, but it's kind of built around the idea of playing with friends, or God forbid online you could play with your friends, like I think that would be really cool. Like if, I'm Slippy, you're Falcon, whatever. And maybe even you have slightly different abilities and stuff like that. Alternatively, as has been pitched by members of our Discord, some sort of, like they did it with F-Zero, bringing it back with some sort of 99 or 35 or whatever. Like, I guess the 30th anniversary happened the other year, a few years ago, and so maybe they can't.
Well, let's
find
wait
the right
for the 99th anniversary.
Yeah, that's when it'll happen.
Yeah. Like an open world Star Fox game.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say it because I don't want to just say open world before a game franchise that I like and then be like, call it a day. But I mean, like, come on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that would be a huge undertaking, I think, to be able to do that right. But I mean, I feel like we got hints of it with Star Fox Command, right? Like this kind of idea that there's a bigger conflict going on. There is any number of paths that you could take in order to, route your enemy. There are different worlds that you could have many different levels on each world. And even if some of those levels were procedurally generated, I think that would work really well with this kind of thing that we're talking about with a roguelike Star Fox. It doesn't have to be a roguelike. You could just utilize procedural generation on some of these levels for like mission progression and stuff like that, right? So I think that there's a lot of really cool shit you could do with that. And I kind of feel like, what was that game that came out? Atlas, Battle for Atlas.
Right. The Ubisoft game where they had
yeah,
Star
exactly.
Fox in it.
Where they had Star Fox in it. They were clearly like kind of, toying with that was a huge failure of that game, by the way. So maybe that's not a great example, but other games like No Man's Sky and all there's a hunger for this style of game, but it's just like, it seems so un-Nintendo, right? Like that's the only reason that I kind of like hesitate to talk about open world Star Fox so much, even though that's like what I really, truly, I think want from this franchise.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I feel like the mix of maybe something like a Forza Horizon style car driving game mixed with like a Diablo, something in that realm. Because Diablo, you walk around the map and you hit a dungeon, and the dungeon's always procedurally generated. So as many times as you do the dungeon, it's always different.
Right.
Something like that mixed with like Forza Horizon, you're driving around this giant map, and every time you hit like an event, it's like, oh, this is a race, this is a stunt rally, this is like, there's like different types of events within the world. And then if you can mix that with procedural generation on a large scale of a planet, and then you have several planets within, like, boom, there you go. That's a Star Fox game. Like, what are we doing here? I don't know. Like, there's so many easy ways to continue this franchise. And that's why I'm always like, do they care enough to do that, though?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like Starfield. It doesn't have to be like, thousands of moons and all the shit that you can, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like that. You just have the kind of overworld map that you would normally do, and then you can kind of explore throughout the planets, I think like that would be pretty cool, and I think you could do it stylized, and you could have it be a big showpiece, and I think that would be a really impressive feat for the Switch too. You could utilize the mouse and the Joy-Con, and you could. I was pulling shit out of my ass, but yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's been pitched. Like surely this has been pitched before, and I think maybe I even seem to remember something about somebody at Retro pitching this before and it being kind of turned down. But I'd just love to see it.
Yeah. Well, I think we should head towards wrapping this up. So, is there anything else, either just about Star Fox or about what we want Nintendo to do with Star Fox, anybody wants to share? Josh, do you have anything?
I mean, just in general, the music is very like, it's almost addictive to listen to, it's very, every single planet or like Meteo is one that really comes to mind. Mm-hmm. It just really fits the theme of everything. There's a lot of I don't know, it feels very militant at some points, and then you'll go to like Aquas and it'll be super dreamy, and I don't know, I'd really hope if we get another Star Fox that they really keep that theming for the audio, really kind of keeping that all intact. I don't know, I think it's a very integral part for me, at least.
Yeah. I love the soundtrack for the original game. That original Corneria theme for the Super Nintendo goes so fucking hard. That was my ringtone for a really long time. Really? Just a couple like random little things I'd like to shout out. Star Fox 64 3D was a game that had online voice chat on the 3DS. And not only did it have voice chat, it took video of your face and put it over your ship as you were flying around. That was like the only time Nintendo ever did that. That was pretty fucking cool that they did that. I don't know. That's just a little tidbit I thought was cool. What else? Star Fox 2. Obviously, we didn't go too into detail about that, but that was a full ass sequel to the original Star Fox that was scrapped because the N64 was coming out, and they're like, why would you want this? We'll just make Star Fox 64. Which Star Fox 64 was just a remake of the original Star Fox, where Star Fox 2 actually added new characters, right? You had new additions to the roster. So that was really cool. The fact that finally released. Nintendo never does that. You know, like imagine if they did that with like Pokemon Picross, like when we were talking on that Picross episode, you know, like Nintendo doesn't really release stuff like that. So the fact that that came out on the SNES Mini and on NSO is pretty amazing. Star Fox Adventures, I think, gave us a really amazing character in Crystal. And you know, I think she was also in Star Fox Assaults, if I'm not mistaken.
I think
She
so.
was.
Yeah, but still, that was like a very iconic character design and like felt like a very fresh breath of air for the series, and made me really excited to see like what they could do with that character and the series going forward. And then it kind of just kind of fizzled out, you know. So what I'm saying is like whenever they do new stuff, I get really pumped and excited. So that's just a couple little tidbits that I had that I wanted to talk about with Star Fox.
Well, awesome. Then that's going to do it for our talk on Star Fox. But if you have any thoughts out there, listener, about, you know, what Nintendo could or should do with Star Fox, we'd love to hear them, and we'll try to shout you out next time. And with that, we're going to take another break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing recently. Okay, well, I am fully invested in UFO 50.
Let's fucking go.
Like, I am in love with this game. I'm playing a lot of it all the time. So I'm probably going to be talking about it a lot in the future. We'll see. But I actually played tons of games over the break, but I've kind of narrowed it down to just 3 to talk about, which is UFO 50, which is obviously 50 games. So sorry. But just real quickly, I've been playing Party House with my wife. Which has been a really wonderful experience. She doesn't really play a lot of video games. I could count on one hand the games I've like convinced her to play significantly with me. And this is definitely one.
Yes.
And we've got like pretty much we're tied. Like we've played like 5 or 6 times, and it's like gone back and forth. So that's been a lot of fun.
I love that every single person I've ever shown that game to has fallen in love with it immediately.
I love it. Like just the
it's
art,
incredible.
The music, the gameplay. Like
I played it with my dad over Christmas break, and he really enjoyed it as well.
I think it's really accessible and really charming. Of all
especially
the games.
given that it's a deck builder, which is kind of a hard thing to wrap your head around.
I don't
to be
like
honest,
deck builders, and now I'm like, maybe I do, because I've never really spent a lot of time with them. I've always thought I don't like them and just been turned off by them, and then now I'm like, well, maybe I do. Maybe I should try one. But I am really obsessed with trying to beat and cherry Velgris, which I have not done yet. But I am so fucking close. Like I keep getting close and then dying on the 3rd level, but I'll get it done because my life.
Velgris, I cherried the first time I beat it.
I don't think I'm going to beat it without cherrying it. I kind of.
Yeah, because
like,
you know what
I assume
you figure what you have to do. Yeah.
And I basically make sure I get that every run, which sometimes causes me to die, but you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I found the trick with Velgris is just start breathing and playing a lot slower on level 2. You know what I mean? Just like, and don't get freaked out by those fucking bars that go like this.
Level 2 scared the shit out of me the first like 5 times I got there, and now I think it's actually the easiest level. I think that's intentional, but like anyway, I've been playing lots of UFO 50, but I'll move on. There are 2 games.
You don't have to. We can just talk about that.
New topic.
Well, so I played a bunch of games over the break, and I started a lot of games, but I want to talk about 2 relatively short games that I finished. The first of which is Thank Goodness You're Here. Holy shit, I love this game. I don't know if anybody's played this or seen this. I wasn't very familiar with it, but a friend of mine mentioned that they beat it and it was really funny. And I was like, well, I love comedy. I love games. So I randomly on a whim bought it, and it's like a couple hour long game that's in this really fun art style. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a Cartoon Network or like a Adult Swim or something. I don't know.
The character designs look like WarioWare characters a little bit.
And it's really British. It's very British. It's like watching a British sketch show. It's if a British comedy sketch show and a video game were brought together. And that's what it really feels like. And it's gross kind of, and it's a lot of 2D platformery sections and then a lot of sort of top down sections. And it's very funny and very good, and I highly recommend it. I don't know what else to say about that one. But then the other game that I started and finished within the last couple of weeks is Minute. And this has been around for a while. But Minute is the game where you have a minute, right? Like runs, but it's not like, it's kind of like a roguelike, but not really, I guess, because it's like, this one story, but you have to keep doing runs. And I really, really liked it. I think the problem with this game is that towards the end, it gets a little tedious because you only have a minute. And at least for me, that was like, I figured out all the things I could figure out quickly. Right. Like, and then towards the end, there's only 1 or 2 things left to figure out. And like, I keep searching randomly and then the minute runs up and I have to restart. But all that said, that's a very minor quibble. What a fun game. Nice. Another little 2-hour compact experience.
Shout out Jan Willem as well, who is one of the creators of that game. Is one half of Lambert. He's one of my favorite game devs out there.
Great game. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about this week. I'll talk about the rest another time.
I'll go next. So I'm still playing Mario and Luigi Brothers Ship, but I am so close. I am like 60 hours in at this point. I have done all of the side quests. I am at what I think is the final section. This game has as many endings as like Lord of the Rings. Like every time you think it's going to end, it keeps going a little bit longer. And it's kind of wearing on me to where I almost know I don't fully support the 5 out of 10 IGN review, but I almost understand it. Because like from a review standpoint, you're just like, yo, just like wrap it up, man. Like, let's go. Like, I think I would have enjoyed this. This game kind of was like an 8, and now it's kind of bumped down to a 7 for me because I was like, it should be about 10 hours shorter than it is. But anyway, the end of it, the last dungeon and like the section after that is incredible. It is so cool. I really like what they did with it. But the fact that what I had to do before to get there was like a little bit annoying. But also during the break, I did start some new games just to kind of like get a little bit of a break. So 2 games I started. One, I got the video game Dredge for Christmas from my sister-in-law. Dude, this game is so good. It's so simple and so interesting. Like how the gameplay loop is just you sail into the sea, you get some fish, you go and sell the fish, and then you try to unlock a bigger mystery by sailing further and further, but you have to like keep farming and getting money to like upgrade your ship. It's like a ship RPG mini open world game. Man, and the story is like Lovecraft meets like 1800s fishing village. I don't know. It's really sick. This game is really cool. I haven't ever played anything quite like it in the fact that you play as a fisherman in the ship, but I just like to say you play as the ship. It's more fun to look at it that way. But incredible game, really, really fun. And then the last game, I recently got a new phone for the first time after like 5 or 6 years. So I've been playing a couple games on my phone, which I have not done in a long time. So I bought one called Dungeon Crawler, and it's a Slay the Spire style spin-off type game, but instead of how that works, it's like card based. It's you have a claw machine that you're grabbing items out of, and some
I've heard about
items
this.
are attack,
Yeah.
some of that are defend, but it has a lot of the same mechanics as Slay the Spires. Like there's attack, defend, poison, a block, all that kind of stuff. Really fun, beautiful, perfect phone game. Like it just, you can do a run. Sometimes it takes like 45 minutes. Sometimes it takes 10, depends how good you are or how good your claw machine is, but you're building the items in your claw machine and trying to like pick specific items out. Really, really fun game. It was like $5 on my phone. So I was like, yeah, I'll do this. And I've sunk way too much time into that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing over the break.
Nice. Yeah, I'll go next. I've been playing actually a lot of stuff, but I realized that so many of the games that I've been playing has been in one genre, and so I decided to bump them all together. I did pick up so many David puzzle games. One of them was Nonogram's 3D Mega Puzzle, which is I got that on my Steam Deck, and that is just straight up Picross 3D. It is Picross 3D, but they couldn't call it that, and so they call it Nonogram 3D Mega Puzzle. It plays great on the Steam Deck though because you've got the touchpad, right? And so it's like a mouse game that you can play. Like this wouldn't play nearly as well on the Switch. And there is like a Picross 3D style game on the Switch called Voxelgram. But I think this just works so much better because you've got the touchpad. And so it kind of gives you that kind of input that you felt like when you were playing Picross 3D with the stylus on the DS, right? So this is a really awesome game. If you love the style of game, this is a really great one. It's like $7 or something like that. So I've been really enjoying that. I picked up a game called Tetrachroma, which was like $3 or something like that. I think this is $5 normally, and it was on sale for like $3. This is a Tetris ripoff, but it has a really interesting mechanic to it where the pieces that drop are different colors, and you can only clear lines of like Tetris like you would in Tetris when it's all the same color across, right? That's happening. And then anytime that you drop something, it will change all the pieces below it and that are touching it to the side to that same color. So you're constantly like switching the colors of your Tetris pieces. And it's really hard to wrap your head around, but it's also incredibly addictive because it's just fucking Tetris and it plays incredibly well. But then it was somewhere around like hour like 7 or 8 or 9 of me playing this game where all of a sudden it just like snapped into place and like the game mechanics finally started to become like second nature to me. And I'm still not like an expert at it, but it is really cool to play a version of Tetris that surprises me with new mechanics outside of just being like, here's some different shapes for the Tetraminos. Cause like, I don't want that. I want like the same shapes for all the Tetris blocks, So give me something that makes it a little bit interesting and a little bit different. And then I get really excited. I felt the same thing with like Tricky Towers. That's why I love that game so much. But yeah, Tetrachroma, if you're a Tetris fan and you're looking for something that's kind of unique and interesting and you're kind of bored of the same old Tetris, pick that game up. It's fucking dirt cheap on Steam. I'm really surprised with how good that game is. And then lastly, I have been playing a little bit of that game Stitch, which is another number puzzle game, but we don't have to talk about that too much. I wanted to talk about a game that was actually recommended to me by Rapatika, a friend of the show, Dylan Muss, which is a game called Proverbs. And this is also a game I'm playing on Steam, and it's also a game that I use the touchpad with quite a bit. But it's essentially a Philippix puzzle game. You've got a giant, huge board filled with like, how do I fucking describe this? It's like there'll be a number and then on a square, and that says how many of the blocks surrounding it are like filled in. Minesweeper? Essentially. It's very Minesweeper-esque. Yeah. It's like a Minesweeper Pixar puzzle, essentially. And it's very fun, and there are lots of games like this. They call them Philippix. But I think the cool thing about this is that it's one enormous canvas that you're basically filling out throughout the course of it that kind of creates this Hieronymus Bosch-esque painting for you to like kind of uncover as you go. So I've been really enjoying that. And it's one that I'll just be slowly chipping away at until I finally complete the enormous painting on the wall. But that's been a really fun one as well. I've just been wasting my life away with number puzzles per usual. What about you, Josh? What have you been playing recently?
I've been going back to Skyrim. It's that time of the year. Usually I do a yearly playthrough. So back on that, doing a full magic build. So no weapon has gone in my hands this whole time, saving Tamriel with just the knowledge and power I have come to learn in Winterhold. So that's been fun. I don't know. I feel like every time I grab it, it's always, you find something new or different. It's just a real good, like, if you do not want to think, you just, plug the Skyrim in and
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Obsessed with it. But when I'm not playing Skyrim, I'm playing Hyper Demon, which is it's kind of like a arena shooter, kind of Quake, I guess. It's really in its own thing. You're shooting a lot of demons while you have these super over, I don't know, like it's just really overstimulating visuals
Yeah.
I'd say,
Yeah.
you know,
I agree.
it's
Put it
crazy to
lightly
look
from
at.
watching the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well, you could see
have-
this. You could like see in 360 degrees at once.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the caveat of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really, I guess I'd say it's not viewer friendly, but player friendly for sure.
Yeah.
It's really, I don't know, one of my favorite games. Always coming back to it. So,
I love Hyperdemon. I played a good bit of this game before it melted my brain to the back of my skull and I had to put it down. But I'm very impressed with the fact that you've been sticking with this game for so long. I bet you're really good at it at this point.
I don't mean to brag, but you know, I'm top 300 in the world. So
That's what I'm talking about, baby.
yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's good. If you need a real fast on your feet, you don't even have time to think type game, I couldn't recommend Hyperdemon enough.
I need a coach. I'll hit you up for that.
Oh,
That's gonna do it for this episode on the Star Fox franchise. Then, thank you so much, Josh, for coming and joining us and chatting with us today.
thank you.
Thanks also to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thanks to Corduroy, who does our music. If you're looking for me, Patrick, online, you can find me as PDYX.
You can find me on the internet at Bordan.
I'm pretty much everywhere on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Josh? Where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Chicken Scratched. You can find my band that's super cool and awesome, The Swabs. They're Spotify, Instagram, Blue Sky, I think even. So we're pretty much anywhere. You search the name and you'll get some great tunes out of it. So
Very good. Very good.
Yeah,
Make sure you check that out. If you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website, switchheads.com. And we have a Discord, a Facebook group, and a Patreon. We'll have links to all three of those in the description of this episode. Please check those out, whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening on Apple or Spotify. Go ahead and share the episode with a friend. Why don't you leave a like and subscribe on YouTube and leave a review for us on Spotify and Apple. We love all that kind of stuff. It helps us grow the show, and we'd love to continue doing this for many, many thousands of years to come. So please spread the good word of Switch Headz as you will, and join us over there on the Discord. We'd love to have you. What a lovely community. I just boosted the server, so we're level 2 now, so you can come over there and you can use gifts from other servers if you please. Whatever tickles your fancy, listener. I'm not fucking picky. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. What a great time. We're going to be back next week with another banger. But until then, you know the drill, gang. Stay safe out there. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Why don't you just pray? Just sit down and pray to the Christian God every night for a new Star Fox game. And maybe eventually one will come before us. But until then, we love you guys very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.